When a dismissive avoidant disrespects you, the truth they'll never admit. Have you ever walked away from a conversation with someone you deeply care about, only to feel a strange heaviness in your chest? Maybe they didn't yell at you, maybe they didn't call you names, but something in the way they dismissed your feelings, ignored your needs, or acted like you didn't matter cut deeper than any loud fight ever could. That's the quiet sting of disrespect from a dismissive avoidant. They won't slam doors or scream. Their power move is silence, withdrawal, and emotional detachment. And what's worse is that this kind of disrespect often feels invisible to everyone but you. You're left questioning yourself, wondering if you're being too sensitive or if you somehow caused their coldness. This is how a dismissive avoidant protects themselves. They make you feel like your emotions are a burden, and over time, that belief eats away at your self-worth. The first sign of their disrespect is emotional neglect. Dismissive avoidants don't just withhold affection, they withhold acknowledgement. You could be pouring your heart out, confessing pain, expressing joy, or sharing something deeply personal, and they'll respond with a flat, a shrug, or complete silence. It feels like hitting a wall. This isn't an accident. It's a defense mechanism they've carried since childhood. But while it explains their behavior, it doesn't excuse it. Emotional neglect from a partner or loved one is disrespectful because it tells you your feelings don't matter. Over time, this kind of interaction can condition you to stay quiet, to stop expressing your needs altogether, which only deepens the emotional gap in the relationship. Another form of disrespect they show is their disappearing act. Dismissive avoidants have a way of vanishing emotionally and sometimes physically when things get intense. Maybe you share something vulnerable, or you try to address a problem in the relationship, and suddenly they're distant, cold, and too busy. This behavior says, "You're not worth my time" when things get uncomfortable. That stings deeply, especially for someone who craves closeness. It's disrespectful because healthy relationships are built on mutual effort, but an avoidant often checks out when that effort feels too demanding. You're left carrying all the emotional weight while they retreat into their safe shell, where they don't have to feel. Then comes the passive-aggressive disrespect. A dismissive avoidant may not be openly cruel, but their behavior speaks volumes. They may subtly mock your emotions, make you feel dramatic, or use humor as a shield to avoid intimacy. You'll notice little digs, jokes at your expense, a roll of the eyes, a patronizing tone when you're upset. This creates a dynamic where you're constantly second-guessing yourself, wondering if you're overreacting. The truth is, this is emotional invalidation disguised as humor. It's their way of keeping control in the relationship because if they can make you feel small, they don't have to face their own fear of vulnerability. Perhaps the most painful sign of disrespect is when they minimize your pain. Imagine telling them how lonely you feel or expressing that their withdrawal hurts you, and they respond with something like, "You're overthinking it," or "That's not a big deal." In that moment, it feels like your emotions are invisible. They're not just ignoring your feelings, they're dismissing your reality. And when someone consistently denies your emotional experience, it erodes your confidence in your own intuition. This is not just disrespect, it's emotional neglect that borders on psychological harm because it teaches you to mistrust yourself. It's important to remember that dismissive avoidance didn't become this way overnight. Many grew up in environments where their emotions were dismissed, ignored, or even punished. Their disrespect toward you often mirrors the way they learned to protect themselves. They see vulnerability as a threat. To them, pulling away feels safer than leaning in. While this backstory can create empathy, it should never be used as an excuse for mistreatment. Understanding their patterns doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. It means you're able to see their behavior clearly without internalizing it as your fault. So what can you do when a dismissive avoidant disrespects you? The first step is to stop chasing validation from them. When you feel dismissed, the instinct is often to try harder, to explain yourself again, to beg for understanding, or to push for closeness. But this only fuels the cycle because a dismissive avoidant feels suffocated by emotional pursuit. Instead, step back. Protect your dignity by giving space, not as a punishment, but as a boundary. This shift communicates, "I won't beg for the bare minimum." And often this quiet strength unsettles an avoidant more than any argument ever could. Another crucial step is to name their behavior. You don't need to attack them, but you do need to call out the disrespect calmly and clearly. For example, you could say, "When you ignore me when I'm upset, it makes me feel dismissed. I won't tolerate being treated this way." This isn't about changing them. It's about protecting your own emotional health. Avoidants often thrive in relationships where their partner silently absorbs the pain. By voicing the impact of their actions, you break the unspoken rule that their behavior is acceptable. Equally important is shifting the focus back to yourself. When you're in a relationship with a dismissive avoidant, it's easy to lose yourself in the cycle of craving their love and attention. But the most powerful response to disrespect is self-respect. Start pouring energy into your own emotional well-being. Build a life outside of the relationship that reminds you of your worth, friendships, passions, goals, and self-care. This not only strengthens your confidence, but also disrupts the dynamic where they hold all the power. Avoidants often pull away because they sense dependence. Showing that you can thrive without their constant validation creates a healthier balance. If you choose to stay in a relationship with a dismissive avoidant, it's important to have realistic expectations. They may never express love in the way you want. They may struggle with emotional closeness their entire life. The question becomes, can you accept them as they are without sacrificing your own emotional needs? If the answer is no, walking away isn't weakness, it's strength. You're not abandoning them, you're choosing yourself. Disrespect should never be tolerated, no matter the backstory. There's also power in recognizing patterns early. If you're dating someone new and you notice dismissive tendencies, constant withdrawal, minimization of feelings, avoidance of emotional conversations, these are red flags. Don't ignore them just because there's chemistry or attraction. Chemistry doesn't heal emotional neglect. Boundaries do. The sooner you identify these patterns, the easier it is to protect yourself from a cycle of disrespect that can last years. For those who've been deeply hurt by a dismissive avoidant, healing often requires unlearning their narrative. They may have made you feel too needy, too emotional, or too sensitive, but those are lies born from their fear of closeness. The truth is, your emotional depth is a gift. Your desire for connection isn't weakness, it's humanity. Healing means reclaiming your worth and refusing to let their emotional unavailability define your value. One of the hardest truths about dismissive avoidance is this: they often don't realize they're being disrespectful because emotional closeness feels foreign to them. To them, silence feels safe, withdrawal feels natural, and emotional distance feels comfortable. But just because it feels natural to them doesn't make it right. You deserve someone who makes you feel seen, heard, and cherished, not invisible. And that's why your boundaries are so important. Not just to protect yourself, but to remind them that love requires mutual respect. Sometimes the most impactful thing you can do is to stop participating in their emotional game. When you no longer react to their withdrawal with desperation, when you stop explaining yourself over and over, when you stop tolerating passive-aggressive jokes, you shift the power dynamic. Avoidants are used to partners bending over backward to win their approval. But when you calmly refuse disrespect and focus on your own peace, they're forced to confront themselves. This doesn't guarantee they'll change, but it guarantees you'll reclaim your strength. In the end, being disrespected by a dismissive avoidant can be a wake-up call. It's a painful reminder that not everyone has the emotional capacity to meet your needs. It doesn't mean you're unworthy of love. It means their fear of intimacy is bigger than their love for connection right now. Your job is not to fix them. It's to honor yourself enough to walk away from any situation that makes you feel small. Whether they change or not is their journey. Your journey is to break the cycle, heal, and step into relationships where love feels safe, warm, and mutual. If this message resonates with you, take it as a sign that you deserve better. Not necessarily better as in someone else, but better as in a life where you're not constantly questioning your value. Respect is not optional in a relationship. It's the foundation of love. And if a dismissive avoidant can't give it to you, you have every right to create a life where you never have to beg for it.